Waiting for Teams to start recording. Okay. And before I do hand over again, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules, which I'm sure many of you have heard before. So if you do have questions, please raise your hand or you may type in the chat box. I will then indicate to the presenter. Mr. Tsepo, while I'm at this point, would you like to take questions during the session or after you have presented? Mr. Tsepo? I can just get a thumbs up from everyone else that I am audible. Okay, great. Thank you. I think this might be from Mr. Tsepo's side. Mr. Bongani, can maybe you unmute and confirm? Okay, well, while we wait for the facilitators, I'll just continue. So you may raise your hand or type in the chat box during the session, and then I will indicate to the facilitator. Right now, your mics are automatically are on mute. However, when your hand goes up, I will unmute you. And then I did mention that the session will be recorded and we will request presentation slides from the facilitator and then upload these to the Moodle community, which takes about 3 to 5 days after review. And then lastly, we will be posting a feedback survey link in the chat. Please ensure that you do complete this because with your attendance and with the completion of the feedback survey, we will note that down and then issue you a certificate. But apart from this, the anonymized results will be sent to the facilitator for their reporting purposes and as well as our reporting purposes. So now I would introduce Mr. Tsepo to you, who is the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment Officer, with a focus on postgraduate examination and the admin process, as well as the admin process custodian for the faculty's higher degree committee. Thank you, Mr. Tsepo, for presenting and taking the time to have this workshop today. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. I don't know. I stepped out a little bit. Can we begin? Can I just begin?
No problem. You can go straight ahead.
All right, thank you. Let me start by introducing the people that I'm with. So those are the people that will be taking questions, answering the questions with me. That is Mr. Shabangu. I think he's already logged in, and I've got so Mr. Shabangu is a faculty officer of electrical engineering, and then I've got my Hafa, who's head of faculty, which is Mr. Nkosi. I think he's also available. We also have Miss Maleka and Mr. Ngele, who are also part of the FEB team. Thank you for being part of this workshop. The one thing that we realized the most is a lot of students are struggling, and the struggle, it's just a matter of communication and information, and that's what we intend to do this year to help with that, kind of like take you in this journey or be in this journey with you guys, the faculty, the departments, and you guys as students. So I'm gonna be explaining the master's processes. So I'm expecting that each and every student that is here, that is part of this workshop, is registered and they're ready to start either their masters or their PhDs. I'm gonna start into it exactly by just introducing the faculty. So the faculty has 5 different schools. So our schools are made up of different departments. As you can see, the School of Civil, has different departments. It's Department of Civil Construction, town planning, and then there's mining. It's also made up of chemical and mining. That's the School of Mining and Chemical. And we also have a School of Industrial and Mechanical. We also have a School of Electrical. Then we've got a postgraduate school. I think here it's Engineering Management School. They mostly focus on the postgraduate studies. So once the student has been registered, I think that's where I want us to start everything. Once the student has been registered, within a period of 7 to 8 months of your registration, you will do like a defense app. Different schools do it differently. So with this one, it's more of information that you'll get it from your supervisor. It's more of information that you can get it from the HOD, but you need to keep on visiting your departments just to understand as to how are they planning to do their proposal defense this year. So it could be each and every year. So for a master's and a PhD student that is registered, within 3 months of your registration, what we call a study field should be assigned for you. You should be having a study field. You should also be assigned supervisors. So this is the process where you get assigned supervisors. So the process of you assigning a supervisor, being assigned a supervisor, and also having a study field. Remember when you applied, you also had an idea. You had an idea of what you want to study, and you also had an idea in terms of the field that you want your research to be based on. And for that, you and your supervisor needs to be responsible in making sure that the study field is there and it's agreed between you and your supervisor and the supervisor as well. If you have a core, you and your core must also have an agreement. There's an agreement form that you'll get, I think, from the department, which you will need to complete just to show that you and your supervisor have agreed to embark into this journey. So your supervisor needs to complete what we call a study field form. With this form, normally supervisors, they complete the form. The form must go and be signed by the HOD, and it must be, or either the HOS in instances where maybe the HOD is not available, or the HOD maybe is a supervisor. The HOS can also sign. The HOS is the head of school. And it must be approved by the school committee. So normally, before everything can be finalized of masters, either your topic, either your title, either your examiners or your results, we have a committee that is called an FHDC committee, the Faculty Higher Degree Committee. So that committee deals with all those things that I've just talked about in terms of approving, in terms of making sure that the students when they want to make changes, they get approvals from that committee. So each and everything needs to go through that committee. So once it's approved at that committee, we get to capture it on the system. Everything is captured on the system, and then that's when everything now can reflect on the student profile. We capture it on the system called ITS. And then in a case where maybe you need to do replacement or you want to change your supervisor, all you need to do is to follow the same process, which is completing the same form. The form must go and serve at the school meeting. Once it gets approved in the school meeting, then it must immediately be sent to the FHDC, which is now the bigger committee from the school, that is a faculty committee. And once that committee approves, we will make sure that it's in the system. Okay, before I get to that, I wanted to also say that it is very important that as a student, you follow up mostly with your supervisor to find out that these processes are done and are done correctly. Yes, it's not directly the responsibility of a student because the form must be completed by a supervisor. The form must be signed by both the supervisor and the HOD or the HOS. You see, that's more of an internal process, but it's also important that the student knows because the study field is from you. So it's important that you know that it's been approved and it's not going to disadvantage you. Maybe you get to a point where you are submitting and only to find out that on the system we don't have anything. So it helps if both the supervisor and the students are in this journey together, like I said. Once the study field has been approved, that's you now studying your journey of masters. So you're already now busy with your supervisor, busy with your research. So once you and your supervisor feel that you've done enough work and you feel like maybe whatever that you guys have done, it's now ready to be submitted for examination. Before that could happen, when a student is ready to submit for examination, supervisors need to submit their dissertation title to the FHDC for approval. So remember, you have a study field that's been approved maybe earlier in the year. And later, when you're about to submit your work now, that is when now your title is finalized and your supervisor now needs to complete the same form. The process is almost the same. This is the form that they need to complete. It's almost similar to the study field form, which once that form is completed, it means it will need to serve at the school meeting, then get approved there. Then once it is approved there, it will need to now be included in the faculty meeting, which is the faculty higher degree. Once it is approved there, it now gets to be captured on the system. Our office will capture it on the system. Then it becomes part of your profile or your name within the university. Then both the title and the nominate, there's what we call a nomination of assessor. So before you could submit, like I said, you need to make sure that your title is approved. You also need to make sure, but again, these are internal processes. But you as a student, you need to be there because both you and the supervisor are in this journey of your master's or your PhD. So you also need to be involved in checking and making sure that they did submit everything in time and everything has been approved, whereas you can go ahead and submit and all that. So those are the things that, or that's another reason where we want to involve students in these processes, because we feel like sometimes you'll get a supervisor with 50 students and they're bound to forget something or make a mistake. So when we have students there, it helps a lot in them making sure that everything goes well, because you keep asking and you keep checking with them if everything is being submitted and approved. Approval of title, like I said, done approving a title. The process, I said, is the supervisor complete the study for title, and then it's signed by your HOD or your HOS. Once it's approved at the school agenda, it gets to be sent to the FHDC to be included in the meeting. And then once it is approved by the FHDC, then the details get to be captured on the system. Again, with the nomination of assessor, it's a different form that a supervisor needs to complete. So in this process, your supervisor will need to, it normally says 4 months before the submission, where your supervisor will need to, start looking for people that, or examiners that are specialists in the field of your study. As you guys have started your research, we need people that specializes in that field. So you will need to get those people to be ready and approved by the committee before you can submit, so that when you submit, we are able to just send it directly to them and they work on it, and the process doesn't stop. And again, in a case where we have changes or replacement, the process remains the same. You just need to complete the form. It gets approved at the school level. It must be approved at the faculty level, and then gets captured on the system. Like I said, this is the form, the title form. The process is internal, but it's also important that the student, it's also part of that process. So I said here, remember I said that when you do when your supervisor complete the nomination of assessor form, the policy says it must be completed 4 months before the submission, before you can submit your thesis or your dissertation. So I'm just gonna, give an understanding of how examination work in terms of the dissertation. But we have what we call a minor dissertation. Some of you are doing a minor dissertation, some of you are doing full straight research, which is full dissertation, and then there's those who are doing research in their PhD. So with minor dissertation, we normally appoint 2 examiners. Both examiners are normally must be local, unless if we don't have anyone who specializes in that field locally, then we can maybe put a motivation and maybe get someone international. And with full dissertation, again, we appoint 2 examiners. One can be local and one is allowed to be international, or you can have 2 locals, but I don't think you're allowed to have 2 international examiners. Actually, you are not allowed to have 2 international examiners. But again, that is a process of your supervisor. It's an internal process. But you as the student, you need to be kept on the loop in terms of if it's done, if it has been approved already. And then with PhD, we've got 3 exams. We need 3 examiners appointed. So with 3 examiners, we normally mix them. It needs to be international and local. It cannot be straight international 3 or straight local 3. We just need to do the mixing around of that. And then when you are about to submit, there will be the forms, the 3 forms that you need to complete that will accompany your dissertation or your thesis. And those 3 forms are the certificate of release, affidavit, which it's the stamp and commission of oath might be taken to the local police station, and then declaration of your form. So the certificate of release must be signed by both you and your supervisor. This is the form that allows us to actually send the work out, or it informs us that both the student and the supervisor are happy with what they've worked on and they are ready for the work to be sent out to examiners. This is the template that we normally use when when students send their dissertation or their thesis to the faculty. That's just the template that I've come up with, where you can see there's a subject there. You create like a table where you write your title, the name of your supervisors, the date in where you submitted, and then you send it to me. This is my email, tsateke, and then you send it again to this email, CC this email, which is the faculty email. Then you will CC your supervisors, or if it's your supervisor submitting, they will just CC you and send it to me using the same process. So now with that, this is the process where you are now sending the exam to us, right? Now I'm gonna get into the process where now you are under examination. Now you've submitted your examination and what happens after. So here I said submission guideline and timelines for master's dissertation and thesis. So these guidelines are as follows. So with Phoebe, you submit throughout the year. You can submit any day. You can submit on Sunday. You can submit holidays, but you submit throughout the year. The catch is just the last day of submitting for the year will be the 3rd of December 2025. So after the 3rd of December, we're not gonna consider, not that we're not gonna consider any submission, but we know that normally around that time we get a lot of submissions, and those submissions take us to a point where we close the university while we're still sending. So we know that there are minimal chances that we will send it out, but if we're able to finish everything in time, we will still send it out the same year. But if we can't, and you've submitted on the 4th of December, we will send it out as soon as we come back in January. We won't require any registration from you until further communication is it's sent to you. And then there's this one where it says the 31st of October is the cutoff date for submitting work without running any risk to register for the following year, which is now will be 2026. So this one simply says all students, now that you guys have started your masters and those that started last year, so all students that will be able to submit before the 31st of October, we're gonna push and make sure that those students, their work is completed within the registration of 2025. So we will not allow those students to jump or to overlap to 2026. We will be needing them to register. Unless in cases where examination is not done, maybe due to the fact that maybe the student just failed some of the research was told that it's not good enough, you needed maybe to go work more on it and all that. But other than those reasons, if you submit before the 31st of October, the faculty assures you that you will not register the next year. And then it says here, examiners must be given 4 months before submission, so must be approved 4 months before submission. I think I've already mentioned that. And submission can be done by either the student or the supervisor, as long as the certificate of release, that form is signed by both the student and the supervisor. Any one of them can submit. And then if you haven't received any communication when you submit, this is normally the type of communication that I've created to just make sure that, I don't miss any exams or people come back and remind me if there's anything maybe that I could have missed. So here I say, if you haven't received communication normally within 3 weeks, we urge supervisors or whoever, or students or whoever submitted to follow up with us. And we give our examiners 4 weeks for minors for minor and full dissertation, and we provide them 6 weeks for thesis. But like I said, so as much as we give them this duration, 4 weeks and 6 weeks, I want you guys to know that examination is very flexible, and these people are external examiners. The university doesn't normally pay them. They don't pay them. I think they just get an honorarium of, acknowledging that they've done a certain work, but they don't really get paid. And in between that, there comes a lot of flexibility where they can request, more time, where they are allowed to be, to say to you that they can only begin working on this day that suits them according to their calendar. Like I said, some of these guys are are lecturers from other universities, so they also get busy depending on when do we send the examination. So it becomes a relationship thing where I normally agree with them, and from that relationship agreement, or from agreeing with them, you normally go with that. So you'll find students coming to us, like I said, it's 6 weeks PhD, and then a student will come after 6 weeks and say, yeah, but my work should be ready. So the so the policy says that it takes a maximum, so it's 4 weeks masters, it's 6 weeks PhD, but it takes a maximum of 3 months to complete the whole process because of those nitty-gritties that can come in the process. And then in a case of reassessment, examiners, we give them 2 weeks. So that would mean maybe when examiners have said that you need to go fix 1, 2, 3, once we send it to them, they take 2 weeks to send feedback. But like I said, it's a relationship thing. It's a matter of me and them agreeing on a perfect date. And then the feedback is sent once it is back from examiners. I will compile it and send it to your supervisor. And then we have scheduled, with PhD, we've scheduled what we call an oral presentation. With masters at the moment, it's not yet implemented, which I think it's still in talks, but it's not yet implemented. And the examination officer, that is me, I will schedule the date normally on the 8th week, because the examination come back on the 6th week with PhD. I'll just schedule a date of the 8th week, and then your assessors must be part of that oral presentation. Then that is when we can confirm that your results are ready to go and serve at the committee. Once you've done the oral presentation, it is called the defense, where you're defending your study. And normally it takes place online. And supervisors, once it is done, now supervisors have a maximum again of 2 weeks to compile the final submission. So they need to compile a document that has every requirement that FHDC needs for us to save your results and approve them. They know them. It's an internal process again. From your side, it's just a matter of every time following up on the dates, knowing when it will be, when it will serve, when it should you expect feedback. It helps them to push while you push them, because like I said, for an example, if an assessor has 50 students, it's easy for them to forget you or to forget something, in between that. And once your results have been submitted to the faculty and they have been approved by the FHDC committee, with masters, the results are documented. That's when we capture everything on the system. That is when from our office, you will receive like a congratulation message to say you've completed your qualification. And then when you call online, that's when you can see your result. But that is masters. So with PhD, once it gets approved at FHDC, the agenda, we do an agenda that goes to Senate for final approval. So PhD is approved at Senate as well, gets approved at FHDC. The final approval is done by Senate. There's a committee of Senate that also needs to approve the PhD results. So with that, we wait for that meeting. And then once the meeting of Senate has confirmed and approved the PhD qualification, that's when everything is captured on the system again. That's when you receive the congratulation messages. I think I've also touched on this, the examination timelines. Like I said, masters examiners are given 4 weeks. That's the time we give them. And PhD, we give them 6 weeks, and then the oral presentation will take place on the 8th week. So I will set it out on the 8th week. Once they submit on the 6th week, then when it comes to that 8th week, that's when we'll be doing the defense. And then in a case of reassessment or maybe a requirement of experts, so here it's just corrections where maybe we are given minor corrections or major corrections. we have timelines that we give to students. So we give students 2 weeks again. We say we have a minimum of 2 weeks to complete those corrections and send it back to me so that I'm able to send it to the assessor that requested either the expert or either the reassessment. And then we also give those assessors 2 weeks to complete or to read the work and give us feedback. And then with expect, we normally give them 1 week to go through the document and give us feedback. And then we have what we call study breaks and appeals. So these normally happens throughout your master's or your PhD journey, where with study break, it normally when you want to abscond or take a break to your studies, you need to inform us. You cannot just decide to not register the next year. That disadvantages you when it comes to the number of years that you've done for your qualification, either your master's or your PhD. So you need to come to the faculty, get a form, complete that form, have your supervisor to sign that form. Like I said, it's still going to go through that process where it gets approved at the school level, then it gets approved by the FHDC. Once it is approved by the FHDC, we capture it on the system. Then we know that this student requested a study break because of it could be health reasons, could be financial reasons, it could be mental reasons, but you just need to state your reasons on that form, and it is only applicable for a year. Then with appeal, 7F appeal, so this one will come when normally you've exhausted the number of years of your study, which if your qualification master's is 2 years, you've done more than 2 years and you're still not done. Normally, we will exclude you where we expect you to do the motivation appeal. The appeal process goes the same way where it needs to get approved at the school level, get approved by the committee, then we capture it on the system. Then that's when the student can be allowed to come back for a year to complete their qualification. It's also specific. It gives you a year to complete. And again, another way an appeal can come. So for instance, when I was talking about the study break, so some students, you'll find them that they will just go at all and decide not to register. So if you skip years in between your registration, when you come back, you need to write a motivation. You need to do an appeal where you explain to the committee that the reason you couldn't register was 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, it's the same process. Like I said, you must write the motivation and then you give it to your supervisor. They must sign and then they must send it to the HOD or the HOA, who must sign and must be part of the meeting. Once it is approved, then the faculty will inform you to go ahead and register. And then here, this is the process of just approving results. So this is FHDC. Normally, these are documents that are required from your supervisor. But like I said, it's an internal process that you are also part of when you are with your supervisor. So, so your supervisor gotta make sure that your summary of assessment is completed, that both you and your supervisor have signed what we call a permission to submit, that you've done your correction, your corrections. So these are called response to assessor comments. You've addressed all those comments well, and those examiner forms must also be part of the package that will be submitted to the faculty with the PhD. We will include a report from your defense or your oral presentation. And there must also be an article involved there or included there. With masters, we only need one article, and with PhD it can be two. So even if they're not yet published, we should submit at least proof of submission to publication that it's in the process of being published. And ethics certificate, that only happens if your study needed, ethical approvals, and then the global, that's internal. And then the motivation, if there was any case that needed a motivation, maybe we changed examiners, we just need to write a brief motivation explaining the whole process to say that is what happened so that the committee knows. And I'm almost at the end. So we have what I call library publication. So this process normally happens once you've your thesis or your dissertation has been approved by the committee. So once it's been approved and your results have been captured on the system, you will complete these two forms. Normally we give these forms to supervisors, but it's been a hassle between them and students. So we also allow students to request what we call a completion letter. So once you are done and once you get approved and you get that congratulations message from the faculty, as a student, you need to request a completion letter, or we need you to complete the 2 forms, which are ETD form and the declaration forms. You will submit those forms along with the final copy of your thesis or your dissertation. Why? The reason for that, it's for the university library publication, where your work can be published within the website of the university, and the form allows you to not agree if you want your work, or your work is not ready to be published, or maybe you guys are still working on your work towards your thesis or something, the form gives you that option. And yeah, I think I've covered everything that has to do with the process of us, helping a master's or a thesis, a PhD student. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pide.
Thank you, Mr. Tsepo, for a wonderful, informative presentation. We do have a few questions in the chat, but firstly, apologies, I did miss your colleagues in the beginning. I did not know they would be joining us, but thank you to your colleagues, Mr. Bongani and Mr. Dino, who I see is already answering in the chat. And we do have one other colleague, am I right? Tsepo, you are muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, we have Miss Tanlele and Miss Malik. I think they're also part of the meeting. So that they will
Thank you
just
all for
respond.
joining us. Sorry, you may go
No,
ahead.
I wanted to just say that they will be there, so everyone knows what questions to cover. So as the students ask questions, they'll just respond in terms of their specialty.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, colleagues, for joining us and for helping the students out. I'll go straight to the chat to start from the beginning, though, of the questions that were asked. So the first one was, there was a question regarding this presentation, if it was only masters and PhDs and no honors. Maybe, Tsepo, you can speak a little bit about the honors processes. It would be quite similar to masters, but a little bit more with coursework. Am I right?
I'm sorry, Doctor. I'm talking while muted. So you were saying that we've got honors students in the workshop.
Yes.
Mr. Shabangu, can you assist there?
Mr. Shabango, I've already made you a presenter, so you may use your mic if you want.
Okay, afternoon, colleagues, afternoon, everyone. So for honors, usually the process is being handled by the department. So students, they register, they study everything. For the research project, it's usually handled by the department and with the supervisors, because they do the project, and then it assesses from the department. It does not even come to the faculty. So their processes are different. They don't even come to the faculty higher degree. They only submit the final mark to the faculty. I think I've answered the question.
Thank you very much. Maybe the student, I see Mashlangu, Tokozisi Mshlangu, maybe you can confirm that your question was answered. Okay, and then our next question, I'll take one from the participants who have their hands raised. Tendai, you may go ahead.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I have a few questions. Can you please go, Mr. Tepo, on the slide? When you allocate mini dissertation assessors, you said for mini dissertation it has to be 2 local. Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. The follow-up question is, how frequent does the HBC committee meet?
Yes, with local examiners, we appoint 2 locals. Like I said, we are allowed to appoint an international, but that will need to come with the motivation if most probably the field, we don't have anyone in South Africa currently whom we know that can assist us with that field. It is allowed to appoint someone international. And our committee here stands once a month. So we have our meeting each and every month, once off.
Okay. Another let me finish up. So the other one is this examiner department in the Faculty of Engineering a silo, or does it work with other departments? Because I have an
Can you
issue
repeat
where
that?
I'm asking, is your department for examination for the Faculty of Engineering work in conjunction with other departments, or it's only specifically for this department? Because I have a question where the GES scholarships were open and they closed, but we're still waiting for results from the department, my department, your department, Mr. Tsepo. So I want to know, is there any communication that you guys do, or it's only purely for engineering? Because we finished last year and we couldn't have results until today, and we lost the GCS scholarship because they were saying that we didn't meet the deadline to have results on ITS. So how does that work?
I'm just gonna generalize because what I know is we as the faculty, we work only as the Faculty of Engineering, right? But there is, connections in between the external departments or the external areas of the university. But in a format of results, for instance, with you waiting for results, the only time they can be able to access those results is when they are on ITS. And I don't communicate with anyone outside while the student is under examination. So everything is kept within the faculty until it is published on the system.
Okay, just to add to Mr. Tsepo, if I understand the question correctly, right?
Yes.
So
Sure,
at
Mr.
Faculty
Dino, you
of
can add
Engineering,
more.
at Faculty of Engineering, we have our own faculty hierarchy committee monthly because of high volume of students that you have within the faculty. While other faculties, I'm not sure if they're having their FHDC twice or every 3 months. So that's why there might be delay, but we are only speaking for the Faculty of Engineering because we agreed to have FHDC monthly to accommodate students because we have a high volume of students that we are dealing with. Thank you.
Okay, I think that was the last question for Tendai that was answered. Our next participant who has their hand up is Luba. You may go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I wish this information came earlier on. I registered in 2022, did what was required, the coursework, finished the coursework, started with my mini dissertation. August 2023, I submitted. Whilst waiting for my results, the supervisor tells me that the university has decided, because he's external, he was not supposed to be my supervisor. I did not choose my supervisor. The university gave me the supervisor. Okay, long and short, I had to redo the whole thing, register, pay again in 2024, which I submitted in October 2024. No response until this year, Jan. I came to the university. I was told, no, there was a journal that you have to do. I said, but these things we are not told upfront. I did not know that I had to do a journal too. So I have to go and present at some conference that I don't know which conference. Now it's 2025 February. I don't even have the results from the thing that started in 2023. Or yeah, 2023. And I keep receiving the letters that you are delaying. So I just want to know to get the process. I see there's lots of students here. It's really frustrating, and I'm I'm not the only one. There is somebody who's also in the group. We're going through the very same problem. Now, from 2023, the whole thing had to be started. I had to do the ethical clearance again. I asked, okay, so what do I do? Because with the supervisor that I had, we worked on this thing, we refined it, we polished it, and now 2023, I have to get my results. No, this person was not supposed to be a supervisor, and so that's a frustration. If you guys can tell us exactly what to do for the period between submission and results, state all requirements, please, because this thing of things are coming piecemeal. Now, January this year, I hear that I had to do a journal, which was not in the requirements before. So I'll leave it there. I'm just frustrated.
Mr. Loma, Thomas, I hear you. I'm so sorry about what you've encountered. And I think that is the reason of this workshop. It stems from there, it stems from the problems that we've been encountering, and then us as the faculty trying to see how can we meet the student in the matter, because there's the faculty and there's the department. So the faculty will deal with all your administration processes, and then the department will deal with academics. So somehow we disconnect in between that. There's disconnection, which the university is working so hard on the faculty to improve on that. But like in your case, where you had an external supervisor. So we normally advise, or the university says that they don't want students to have external supervisors. The reason is because especially as main supervisor, not allowed, but allowed to have external supervisors as their main supervisors. The reason is they don't know the process. The processes are done differently. QT will do their processes different, especially on the faculty level side now. The academic side, you might find there's a lot of similarities. I mean, you're working on your research. It's just more of you and your supervisor working on your study. But now when it comes to the admin process, you might find that a lot differs. That's why we need to have internal supervisors. But
but if I can say, I did not choose my supervisor. The supervisor is a lecturer for the university. I got the supervisor as a lecturer of the university. So it's not like I went out and looked for a supervisor. The university gave me that this lecturer is he has been my lecturer for the whole for the coursework. So that reason of saying that external is like I went out and looked for a supervisor. I didn't.
No, like I'm still explaining right now. You are not wrong at all. I'm not faulting you at all. I'm not gonna fault you at all as a student. There's nothing that you did that is wrong. The supervisor, your supervisor that you were allocated, when they left, they were supposed to make sure that at least if they want to remain as your main supervisor, at least get a call that is internal who will process everything internally, So that's how the process is done. So when a supervisor is about to leave, they inform the HOD and that process starts. So I don't know in your case that why wasn't that process done?
Well, he didn't leave. He's still a lecturer as far as I know, but he's not in South Africa. But yeah, I think we can continue.
He's still a lecturer of UJ.
As far as I know, but he's not in. He's a lecturer, but in New Zealand. He stays in New Zealand, if I can say. And he's always, even when he was our lecturer, he was in New Zealand, because remember the COVID time, it was online, so the lectures we were attending online, so it didn't really matter where the person was.
Okay, so Dr. Pillay, we also have a departmental representative, one of our head of school, Dr. Dibani. He's also gonna be assisting us. And Dr. Dibani, I don't know if you've had the question, you've had the student. How do you guys normally support the student from a department perspective with a case where a student is having a supervisor that's not in the university at the time.
Thank you, Tsepo, and good afternoon, everyone. we always encourage that students should have a UJ supervisor to co-supervise with somebody who's outside, so that there is accountability, so that that person knows the UJ processes and can be accountable about the progress of the student, because that will be within the KPIs of that individual. My suggestion would be that if students are feeling something is not going right, they can write to the supervisor or to the faculty office at Tsepoisier and other colleagues and raise concerns as early as possible. Because raising concerns when it's too late and you are told about the rules of the game raises these negative emotions that people are expressing this afternoon. I can also respond and say that for masters, the requirement is one article. The university does not say the article must be published, but it says there must be one publishable article. Or if the article is published, very good. If there are two articles, very, very, very good. But the requirement for masters is one publishable article. For PhDs, it's two publishable articles. Two publishable articles. If you've got 5 of them and they were published, all the 5 of them, well and good. But according to the university, if they are publishable, according to your supervisor, that's good enough. There's no rule that says the articles must have been published in a journal or a conference. There's no rule that says that. But if they are published, it is also good, but it's not a requirement. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel, for answering the student and for providing advice. I am going to go back to the chat because they did come in, the questions did come in while the presentation was going. So there was 2 questions by Malangaka, who asked, is this presentation only for registered postgraduates? And I haven't received any feedback from my appeal. May I kindly ask, when is it possible to get feedback? I submitted my appeal in January and was told the meeting for the approval would be in February. However, I see Mr. Shabangu has already added an email address for the student to follow up. And then Tando Monte's question was also responded to. There is a question here that asks, how can I know if my dissertation was published in the library? Maybe Tsepo, you can handle this question.
So you keep check when you check, if you check on the university website, it should be available, or there's details of the library people that you can interact with, and they will assist you with that. On the same forms that you complete, there's details of the people that you can interact with, and they will assist you with that. Or you can always come to us and ask if is there anyhow maybe we can help you. Then we will contact them and get them to contact you and assist you in making sure that your work is published. But there are details on the form.
Just to
Okay,
add,
thank you.
Mr. Tsepo, also it's important that to ensure that as a student, once you completed your master's or your PhD, you submit the ETDs, because without the ETDs, the library is not able to publish your work elsewhere. So they need those forms, because you give consent that your work can be published, or your work they can retrieve your work, but they should not publish it. So you need to also follow up with the faculty if they've received your ETDs, and then the faculty compile those ETDs and they submit to the library in bulk so that the library can upload. Thank you.
Thank you, Dino. I see two colleagues' hands up, but I am going to go through a few more questions because we have quite a lot in the chat, and then I will let the next colleague speak. What type of article papers are required from the PhD student? Is it conference paper or journal paper? This is a question for Tsepo again.
I think that one was answered by
Albert, yeah.
Dr. Bani.
Okay,
Okay,
and then when
I can also touch on it, like Dr. Debani said, you need two
Yeah.
publishable. So for PhD, you need two publishable papers. If you have 5 or if you have more than 2, it's still okay, but you need 2.
that's 2 journal papers, got it.
Or 2 journal papers, yes, or
Yeah.
conference paper, yes.
When is the ethics committee sitting? As this student has indicated they need to submit forms. Actually, it's the student with their hand up in Duvutsa. You may go ahead and speak. Your mic is unmuted.
Good afternoon, and thanks, colleagues. I just want to check with regards to the GS scholarship. If it's only meant for people who are not working, because there is a clause which says that you must not fully employ it. How do I go about with that clause? Because you find out I've applied the GS scholarship so that I can further with my studies, but now I think it's how can I say that this we can't even complete, the studies without, maybe due to financial problems and so on. Is it meant only for people who are not working? The other question that I want to ask is about the ethic committee, because when I was doing my master's, then I did the desktop review. I couldn't get a chance to get a certificate and so on. But I want to check, when do we apply for those forms, and when the ethic committee is it going to sit? And I'm also requesting maybe you share the presentation with us and also the recordings, because I had a challenge with my laptop. It was restarting. Thank you. That's all from my side.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and say that the presentations and the recordings will be uploaded to the Moodle community in 3 to 5 days. It has to go through review first. Otherwise, you can also access them on our YouTube channel. I have typed it into the chat, but for it's at UJ Research Capacity Development. So if you put that into YouTube, you will find it. I will let Dr. Samuel answer the question that was just posed as his hand went up. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. On the question of ethics, Tsepo, I've shared on your email ethics dates, and you can post them to the chat for the students to have them. What makes you decide to apply for ethics? That is decided between the student and the supervisor. It is the supervisor who guides and tells the student this type of study needs ethical clearance. And the dates for when the committee sits every 3 weeks to review applications. And on the document Tsepo is going to share with you, you will see that, for instance, there was a closing date of the 16th of February for applications that will be that are being reviewed now, and that will be discussed on the 7th, if I'm not mistaken, or 14th of March in the committee there. And then after that, the people will get responses. It is important that you discuss the issue of ethics with your supervisor and let yourself be guided by your supervisor when you're applying for ethical clearance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Doc. One more question from the chat, and then I'm gonna take a hand. So there was a question, this is from Shuping, I think it's Kifilwe. Can I submit my whole report for honors and graduate this year if I submitted late the previous year and my research wasn't accepted? So I'll just read that one again. Can I submit my whole report for honors and graduate it this year? If I submitted late the previous year and my research wasn't accepted, maybe I think this one maybe for Dino or Tsebo.
Okay, in terms of that, we need to first check if shopping you are registered, because you need to be registered. And I believe that the departments, they have submission date for review for assessors, because also I believe that the project need to be EXA evaluated and stuff. But for graduation date, let's say now you get approval and the things are sorted now in June. If your things are finalized out in June, definitely you'll be part of the October graduation. But if you're gonna have your things sorted by October, definitely be graduating the following year, because we have cut-off dates, we have graduation dates, and we are following the university rules also. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna let Pearl go ahead now. Pearl, you may unmute and speak.
Thank you. Thank you. For me, I was a student that got approved to proceed with the master's, Master of Philosophy in 2020, just at the announcement of the lockdown in March. So you could imagine that whole year I couldn't do anything to progress with my studies because of the lockdown for the COVID. So I then received a shock of my lifetime after 2 years, when after I just was winning with my dissertation data collection and analysis stage, which was a milestone for me. Then back to the system of an F7 exclusion note, which I tried to appeal, and I never received a feedback over that until today, because then I got motivated in the midst of these years 2023 and 2024 to try and follow up on the appeal, as it was still no feedback every time I was following up. So I just want to ask from this meeting, if I re-appeal and tend to be accepted, can I pick up where I left off with my coursework? Because I had done the most of my dissertation. I had actually finished with data collection and analysis just when I was submitting for the review. Then this information came to my surprise. Or am I going to now be required to restart afresh with the research, perhaps even a new topic of such?
Okay. So the committee, it's for that, actually. It's for approving, your appeals, listening to reasons why the student couldn't register and all that. But I couldn't understand the years and all that. When was your first registration?
Got approved at 16 March 2020. Then I started, yes. Then December 2022, I got F7 exclusion, which I was then in January trying to re-register. I could not. And then my appeal is still not yet having a feedback today.
When did you submit the appeal, the current one, the one you're saying you're seeking feedback for?
On the 24th of January 2023. And then I was even hoping I could do another appeal again, but the system would tell me that there is already an appeal that has been sent to this one, wait for the feedback. So the system could not allow me to re-appeal while I'm waiting for the feedback of the appeal I put through 24 January 2023.
So just drop me an email with your student number and your details, explaining a little bit of that. Then I'll just look at the current situation. But just to answer you in general, so the committee, you will do an appeal. The committee is the one that will decide whether you come back. But from what I heard from you, you do have a chance, because you are saying that your work is ready to be submitted. So normally the challenge when because your first registration was in 2020, what could challenge you with the committee taking you back maybe probably be the number of years of your study. But on your motivation, I'll just look at the one that you submitted and see what happened. But my advice was going to be that when you write a motivation, please include like a study plan, like explain to them what will happen after, like when are you planning to submit on that year that you are asking them to give you a chance to finish your work, while you've already explained the reason why you couldn't register. So can you just drop me that email, then we will just take it from there. I'll just look at your things and find out what happened to your appeal. And then if I have to advise you in terms of going forward, I'll do that. Or if I just have to say to you, go and register, the committee has agreed, I'll do that. But just drop me that email.
Okay, thank you. I'll check for your email on the invitation, should be there, I guess.
Yeah, I'll just also drop it now on the chat. I'm gonna write it now on the chat.
Okay, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Zebo. I think Carl's hand is we are done with her questions. A few more in the chat. There is a comment from Sivu that their master's dissertation is still not in the library, but I think Mr. Dino has properly answered that, and Mr. Zeppa as well. From Pumudzo, at what point do I print the big book that we usually see masters and PhD students flouting to show their work when they graduate? Or does UJ not require that book? That's question number 1. Question number 2, also, does the 31st October 2025 deadline to graduate next year mean the first submission to the panel or to the examiners? And thank you for the informative session. So that's a question from Pumudzo.
Dr. Pili, I'm looking for that question. Can you please repeat the question?
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No problem. The first question is, at what point do they print the big book, the thesis, the hardbound cover, or does the UJ not require that?
That is the process, the library process. So that's when you've completed the ETD. So what you do now is you follow up yourself. So UJ does no longer finalize the process in doing the books, but you follow up with the library and you can order your book and they can tell you how much is it and then they assist you with that. So it is done now individually as per student. If they feel like they want the book, they can go to the library and they will be able to assist them.
Okay, great. And the second question from Pumudzo is, does the 31st October 2025 deadline to graduate next year mean that the first submission is to the panel or to the examiners?
Is Pumudzo not here? I'm trying to understand that question. I'm trying to understand it.
Pumudzo is here. You may go ahead. Your mic can be unmuted.
All right, good afternoon. Can I check that you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, no, the question, what I'm asking is, there is a submission that should go through the panel, I believe, before the panel takes further to the examiners, if I understand the process. So my question is that 31st, you said in one of the slides to say that 31st of October, if you submit, you are likely to be guaranteed that you will graduate. But if you submit after that, then you are likely not to graduate. So what I'm asking is that submission the very first submission to the panel before you actually go to the examiners themselves?
Okay, I get your question. No, unfortunately, no. So that submission should be me getting the faculty receiving it and sending it to the examiners. So it should be the final submission.
Thank you, noted. And thanks for the first answer as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Next question on the chat is there a requirement to publish a journal if you are doing the minor dissertation? Please clarify. And that's from Kia Mohetswe.
Dr. Dubani, you want to cover that or should I just go ahead?
Colleagues, good afternoon. There is no requirement to publish. The requirement is to have a publishable article. If it is published in a journal, very good. If it is published in a conference, very good. If it is publishable, it's very good. The requirement, 1 publishable article for masters, 2 publishable articles for PhDs. Thank you. And that's a minimum.
Okay, thank you, Doc. The next question is from Kefiwe. I think this might have been covered a little bit, but just in case, do I need an ethical clearance for my PhD study? And does my proposal need to be approved by the department before I commence with my project or experiments?
The answer to that, remember, your steps in your study should be led by your supervisor. Your supervisor is the one who is going to decide together with you that your study needs ethical clearance, your study does not need ethical clearance. It is your supervisor who will inform you that you must go and defend your proposal, or you must not go and defend your proposal. So all of those depends on your supervisor. Please, we really request students to work along their supervisors for guidance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Doc, once again for stepping in. Our next question, what is ETDS? So I could possibly answer that as well. It's your electronic thesis and dissertation, and this goes to the library. Tsepo, you can confirm if that is correct.
Doctor, you are part of us. Perfect.
Okay, good. Okay, next, yes, Dr. Samuel shared some the ethics dates, which I have added as a link to the chat. Another question for the slides and the recording. So with us, the slides and the recordings go on the Moodle community, but with YouTube, you can only put up the recording. So we will do that in 3 days. Mr. Dino?
Hello?
Hi, your mic was on. I wanted to know if you wanted to say something.
No, thank you. Let me just close it.
Okay, sure. Okay. I registered for masters in January 2025. Sorry, this is from Ndamulelo, and I do not have a supervisor as yet. When are the supervisors assigned to students?
Okay, just to answer that is, if the student is new, the department will have a departmental opening whereby they welcome all the students, and different departments, they have different ways of operating. Just to make an example, I know with town planning, they usually call all the master students and PhDs. They present it in front of the panel their proposal, and then the supervisors who's aligned with or familiar with the project will then select the student and supervise the student. So if a PhD or master student don't have a supervisor, I would prefer or suggest that you consult with the department HOD, and then HOD will circulate among the supervisors and assign you a supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. And then there is another question or comment by Ndvudzo who spoke a little earlier. Can you please answer the question for GS scholarship? But I think this was answered. Can you please confirm? Ndvudzo? Ndvudza, sorry.
The GES, I couldn't get the answer, hence the ethics and sharing of the slides. Yes, I got the answer. GES scholarship, I didn't get an answer. I was asking if it's only meant for people who are not working, or maybe students who are not working. Because yes, I'm fully employed, but I got a scholarship, which means maybe I don't qualify. I wanted clarity because I haven't returned the forms. Any response? Thank you.
can I suggest that you drop your email to Tsepo and he can ask the Vice Dean Research about that, about clarity on that. That would be my suggestion.
Thank you, Doc. For the participants here, Tsebo has added his email to the chat. It is the last one. Okay, I think we have answered that question. There is a question and comment from George. When will there be a postgraduate orientation for the 2025 academic year? We need 1 week of orientation to clear out all questions and understand all processes so that we don't get lost along the way.
Okay, just to answer that, our marketing office is still working on that because there are still more students that were busy registering, but they'll be sending communication, I think next week or next week, whereby the Vice Dean will be welcoming all the postgraduate students and all the questions will be answered. All the departments and HOD will be part of the welcoming. So I suggest that you attend immediately when you receive that email from our marketing officer. You attend the workshop whereby all the questions will be answered and all the process will be outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Dino. Next question is, do I need to reapply for ethical clearance again if I'm not able to collect my data within the time frame given on the ethical clearance approval? I could also possibly answer that, and that's a yes, but I will let Sepo go ahead and explain further.
No, Dr. Debani is the chair of the ethics committee, so.
Okay, sorry,
Yes.
Doc, you may go ahead.
Which question is that? Can you repeat it?
Sorry, I'll just repeat it. The question is from Eunice. Do I need to reapply for ethical clearance again if I'm not able to collect my data within the time frame given on the ethical clearance approval?
Yes, it is correct. The person must reapply, can even attach the expired certificate because the certificate is valid for a year.
Thank you. And then, Dr. Samuel, this is also a question for you. Please, can you explain what is meant by publishable? Where do we send and who decides if it is publishable?
The supervisor decides if it is publishable. It is the supervisor who decides and knows what is a publishable article. And the University of Johannesburg, we must explain, publishers are, supervisors are appointed by the university. In other words, if I'm supervising Tsepo, I will be appointed through a proper process. And because I'm appointed, it is taken for granted by the university that I've got all the necessary skills to guide Tsepo in the process. I have got all the necessary skills to know whether an article is publishable or is not publishable. So we rely on the supervisor to say to the committee or to the university, this article is publishable. So the answer is, it is the supervisor who decides that the article is good enough or it's not good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. There's actually no questions left in the chat. So for the participants, this is a chance to ask your last questions before we do close. Are there any more questions? Yes, Pumuzo, you may go ahead.
Thanks, Dr. Pillay. My last question is regarding the topic that is being discussed now about the ethical committee. I have clearance as things stand, and it will expire in November 2025. When I submitted, I said that the participants are available on the CAA website, for an example, is public information that I will be using the kind of participants. But I see that I have got an opportunity to reach other participants via LinkedIn. And this information was not part of my submission to the ethical committee. So the question is, do I amend and resubmit to the ethical committee and say, now I have seen an opportunity to reach other participants in LinkedIn? Or I just want to know if it is allowed to reach participants in LinkedIn because it's a professional social network. I hope my question is clear. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, Dr.
As soon as there's a deviation on your study, you must inform the ethics committee. As soon as there's a deviation, you must inform the ethics committee, because some of the deviations that can happen in your study can affect the participants or can affect the actual clearance certificate that you are given. Just remember, the ethical clearance certificate is based on the methodology that you submitted to the ethics committee. And as soon as there's a deviation, you need to inform the ethics committee, and the ethics committee will evaluate and give you a decision to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sepo, this is a question from me to you. I see that you have put Charlotte's details into the chat, but that's an old number now. Charlotte has moved to the Faculty of Engineering, actually.
No, it is okay. I got this one from one of my colleagues, but it is okay. As Dr. Kribani said, they should just drop that email. I'll look for information for them, and then I'll come back to them.
And also maybe just to assist a little bit, the Postgraduate Fund Management did have a workshop with us in the beginning of the week where they did touch on the GS scholarships. So you can find their presentation already on the Moodle site. Tsepo, do you think it's wise I should put the Postgraduate Fund Management contact in the chat as well?
Yeah, let's just put it there.
Okay, so for GS, with the Postgraduate Fund Management unit, you can contact Mlendeni. I will put his email address in there as well as the number.
Okay.
Or you can visit them at the postgraduate school, which is the offices are at the Kanya building on APK campus, which is where we are also.
Yes, Nongovela, I hope you got that.
Thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, great. Any last questions to the participants, or maybe any comments from our faculty contacts?
Just to add on my presentation, because this is the beginning of Dr. Pila, I hope you heard the students are having a lot of challenges when it comes to bridging the two, the faculty and department. So I think it's always wise that if they don't, like I said, some supervisors are so busy, they're supervising a lot of students, busy with this, that, and some students get stuck. I think we are always here to assist, either with just advice or any information that has to do with their journey or their master's or PhD. They are welcome to come to us anytime.
That's great. Okay, if there's no other questions, I think it's safe to say that the faculty has such a great administrative team that's very open to assisting as much as they can the students. Actually, I'm not going to close now. There's one more question. What's the cutoff date to submit the study break form of a student if a student has registration challenges? I can repeat that question if you want.
I think Mr. Shamangu can take that.
Okay, it is advisable, it's your responsibility as a postgraduate student to ensure that you communicate if you are struggling. For example, let's say now you're a senior student and you can't register this year. You need to apply for a study break. You submit the forms. The forms can be shared from a postgraduate office. You apply for study break and you get approved from the faculty higher degree committee. Also, the form will say study break, interruption of studies should any case happen. Also, if you are excluded, you apply for using the very same form. There are different forms that we have, so you need to communicate. But you need to communicate. Registration is open until March, so you still allowed to apply until the end of first semester, I think, for this academic year. So you can apply online, yes, through communication with the postgraduate office from field. For registration, guys, I know supervisors, they usually say you can register until March. You need to know that the university says that students need to be registered to receive any study material to help from the supervisors. So we only register students during registration period. If we have any challenges, please communicate with our office, then we'll advise. Thank you. I hope I didn't miss anything.
I think Tando can confirm that the question has been answered. George has also asked a question. Is this the first workshop from the faculty or I missed some? So maybe I'll just answer that as well. This specific workshop is a collaboration between the Research Capacity Development Unit at the Postgraduate School and the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment. So our unit, the RCD unit, basically runs workshops throughout the whole year of different aspects of the postgraduate life cycle. So this month, we've been running information sessions for all the support services that are available to postgraduate students and staff. And then we also started doing faculty postgraduate processes, one of which is Phoebe, which the great team here has allowed us to have the session with them. With us, our workshops, which was communicated to you through the Moodle communities, but also the faculty sent out the flyer, hence I think it reached a greater audience. So if you are not on one of our Moodle communities, please can you email us? I am writing the email in the chat, and then we will email you, we will add you to our Moodle communities where you can see the rest of the workshops that we will be giving throughout the year. But if that's what the question was about. But maybe Tsepo, is this the first workshop from the faculty?
Yes, this is the first one, and we are intending to have more. We're just gonna communicate that in time. We're still planning internally, and we hope we get the support from the postgraduate school, you know.
Of
But
course.
we intend to have more of these workshops. Like we said, we want to bridge the gap between, you know, the struggles that students have with their supervisors, and we just want to keep on helping you guys, and so that you guys know that implications like your registration implication, you know, your submission time, it's things that you guys can avoid or can plan, especially when you know the administrative process. So yeah, we're hoping to have more, maybe another one this semester, and have at least 2 the next semester.
We go ahead and speak. Your mic is still muted at the moment. Okay, maybe the hand is just up. You can also type in the chat box if you want to. But your mic has been allowed. Okay, there we go, I think.
Hi.
Hi. Hi, yes, we can hear you.
I just want to know if there's been any meeting this month for the approval of the F7 appeal.
Yes, we had a meeting on the 14th, Valentine's Day. I think our committee, our office is still working on capturing that information and sending out the communication. So latest should be Monday. I think everyone should have communication with regards to their F7, their results, or anything that's saved in the committee.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, that was the last question, if I'm not. Oh, no, sorry. We have one more hand up. You may go ahead. Nduvutsa.
My apologies for raising my hand late, I just want to check because next week there is a PhD, actually it's a block week. What are we expected as students? Are we expected maybe to prepare some presentation? Because since we got an approval, I can say for a topic, we haven't had anything, hence we are expected to sit with our supervisors. I remember I was supposed to meet with my supervisor last week, but it didn't happen because of due to other commitments. And then what are the expectations for next week? Maybe you highlight us so that we are not surprised. Maybe they just send who can please come and present your topic, whereas maybe we are not even prepared. What are the expectations from us? Thank you.
Just to answer that one, please note that different departments, they operate differently. So the department, if they're calling to the block will, they will explain what is required from you. Because most of the students, they usually work with their supervisors. But if the department is calling a block week, that means they want to welcome all the PhD students and check if they have supervisors or not, and assist the ones that they might need help. So you may never know. It's very important to attend. The department will explain. Thank you.
Okay, great. That we got a thumbs up. Okay, I'm gonna wait 10 more seconds before. Okay, there we go. We have another question. You may go ahead, Seko.
Good day, colleagues and teams. I need a personal advice. I'm doing my PhD and this is the third year. I don't have progress because of some pressures I got from my work site, even though I requested my supervisor to maybe assist me to have like the block days, just to say I request Ramroka to I have appointment with Ramroka to face this so that we can be released through the study leave. So I just want to get even from my peers, how are they doing in terms of getting more days, or in terms of their study timetable? How are they doing? Because I'm struggling, but I want to proceed. Thank you.
I think any of the colleagues can go ahead and advise.
Doctor, I'm so sorry. Can you come back again and maybe be more specific? I didn't get the whole question.
So if I understand this question, just to answer it, if there will be the department will be creating the block week, because remember it's a PhD or master's, doesn't have classes. So the department can issue the letter stating that there will be block weeks in these certain days, and then you can use the letter to apply for day off at your workplace. That's my advice that I can give you, because it's research. We don't attend classes, but should the department choose to create block weeks, just ask for the letter from the department that you can submit to your employer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I've been asking and then they said we don't have anything for the blogs. But because next week there's a session, maybe I'll just make a formal submission, because indeed some of us are struggling without study leave days, we're unable to catch up on our studies. But thank you for the advice.
Okay, there's one more question in the chat, which I think is for Dr. Samuel, about if one can use LinkedIn for research participants.
Thank you, Chair. I humbly request students to work with their supervisors when they do their research methodologies. A question of this nature can be answered between the student and the supervisor. The supervisor knows the different modes of data collection and will guide the student accordingly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Doc. I'm going to wait again for 10 more seconds. That was the last question, but I'll just wait before deciding to close. But while we are waiting, I would like to remind the participants, I am posting our feedback survey into the chat one more time. This will ensure that you get your certificate of attendance. So you will only get your certificate of attendance if you complete the feedback survey. The feedback survey results, it's an anonymous feedback survey, but the ratings and stuff are sent to the facilitators as well as at the RCD unit for reporting. We basically use these ratings to motivate for more of the same workshops. So please, I do ask you to complete the survey. Okay, I see we don't have any more questions. So I think we can close. I would like to firstly thank our facilitators so much, Mr. Tsebo, Mr. Dino, Mr. Bongani, and Dr. Samuel. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise, for the presentation, as well as answering the students as best as you could and providing them with the guidance to set themselves up for the rest of the year. I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more of them. They now know who to contact and where to go for information with regards to their studies. So thank you once again. And thank you to all the students for making this such an interactive session. It's one of the more interactive sessions we've had this year. So thank you for participating, and to everyone, thank you for supporting the RCD unit. And with that, I will close the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.